like I was saying earlier, this is a serious it's an unfortunate situation. These informal mining colonies under the ground where a lot of people are going down there. I'm sure there's a lot of chaos there. There's a lot of violence because people are desperate. And if there's 4,000 or close to 4,000 people under there, it's a serious condition. But at this point, I'm not sure how many people are still alive and what's going on. Is there any more news, Lorato? Because the last time I checked, they were now beginning to get emergency equipment for people to go. And anybody who wants to go down there, the police makes them sign indemnity so that they're not liable if anything happens to them. What have you heard so far, Lorato? Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's been a lot of these community volunteers who've been saying they'll go down to fetch those guys and draw them out. But of course, like the these people are not necessarily trapped down there. They
Yeah.
could come out.
Hmm.
It is just their own unwillingness to come out and face the law and face the music. Um, but yeah, but I think people have been
But I think he paused.
um,
You can you repeat
and
that? You broke for a second. You said people have been.
yeah, people have been volunteering to go down and bring people up. Um, and of course, they are like I mean, the reason why the police have to sort of make people sign forms and all those things is because of all the dangers that
Yeah.
surround the safety of the shaft itself,
Yeah.
because it's an abandoned mine. So there haven't been safety checks that have been done over time like they would at regular mining operations. So these irregular mining operations tend to have that as a danger. Number two, the cartel that is running these things are people who are armed, and I don't think they would be afraid to use deadly force to
Yeah.
defend whatever it is that is happening there.
Yeah.
Um,
But go ahead. Yeah.
yeah, so the long and short of it is that the people who are down there need to come out. But I know they've been trying to negotiate with the police and with the government that they need to sort of supply them with food
Okay,
and
but
water.
if that's the case, there are people who are communicating them. So isn't it a little bit disingenuous for, trust me, I'm not against the humanity groups to say that people are there and the government's refusing to help them. If these people are calling and saying they're refusing to come down, that needs to be highlighted in the press so that we don't have the idea that, oh, just a bunch of people starving. But I'm sure there are people down there who may even be kidnapped, hostage, or also unable to come up who need help. But the question is there something blocking people from coming up? Because what caused this? How did all of this start to say that oh, people are trapped down there? Because I know some people came up and they were hungry and dead. So, so
Yeah,
what
yeah,
I'm trying
yeah.
to say is that
So
there's mixed. So what I'm saying from what you're saying, it sort of it corresponds to what some other people are saying, but it contradicts what a lot of people are saying. Oh, that the people are trapped down there and people need to go out and help them. But how can we know what's really true? Are there people who are really trapped? Was there some sort of accident that happened down there that's blocking people, or is it just the case that there's a lot of criminals or people who don't want to come up because they're afraid of being charged criminally? Yeah.
yeah, so I think what had been happening is that this is part of like a long-term operation that the police have been doing
Okay.
in order to sort of deal with applying the laws with regards to irregular minings
Yeah.
or irregulated mining activities that are happening. So what they did is that they, with this particular shaft in Northwest in Stelfontein, is that they started shutting down um, different access points. They sort of studied how people get in and get out of these spaces,
Yeah.
and then they locked down all alternative exits except for
Yeah.
one. And then they then commanded for these guys to come out by themselves.
Okay. So they
Because
forced the process. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is part of them trying to apprehend these guys, so that
Yeah,
so yeah, so that when they go down, people don't use alternative exits. So now,
yeah,
because people could not use alternative exits, they do have to come out through the one opening that is there, that is guarded by the police and emergency workers, and
yeah,
where all the other community members are waiting. So
yeah,
so this is how then their own refusal to come out has sort of forced them into this position of being trapped. But
yeah,
also the story is that some of these guys have been down there for months, um, because they went down there to go and hustle for gold and all those things. So they've been down there for quite a while. And of course, now the blocking of all these alternative entrances is how then they blocked supplies going in and out of the shaft,
hmm,
because that's how then people used to go in and out to sort of supply the mining operation that's happening down there. Um, so locking that was locking their way out, alternative ways out, and also then cutting supplies off, so that people then can willingly come out
yeah.
and face the law.
This to me, I'm not taking sides, but it's sheer stupidity for by the government. They have to do a cost benefit analysis on human life. People are doing illegal mining down there. Yes, it's bad. Closing all these things up and everything makes the situation more dangerous and harmful, and makes it so they have to ask themselves, well, what are you trying to accomplish by closing these illegal shafts, which companies don't use anymore? Now, I think these things need to be stopped because underground, we don't know what's going on. There are cartels, there's probably prostitution, there's crime, and it's filtering out from under the ground into the towns and cities. But my thing is that to me, this should have been a long-term plan in which they use intelligence and stuff to slowly apprehend the people who are doing it, rather than to cause this type of catastrophe, which at the end of the day could lead to a lot of deaths. And they have to ask themselves, was it really worth catching the criminals who were underground? So what I'm saying is that there's bigger problems in the country right now than to cause this type of large-scale catastrophe. What do you think? Yeah. I'm not saying that
Yeah,
they're wrong
yeah,
because it's still the law, but you have to choose your battles. And you have, for example, there's a lot of crime going on the ground in a lot of places that the government needs to be spending resources on. And I'll come also to the other point about if you have this type of thing where there's 4,000 people and there are industries around it and there are cartels, it goes to show you once again that a country which has as much wealth as Congo, more wealth than any European country, has people that have to go to this level to survive. But that's another question. But the question on how they handle this by just closing things up and causing a human catastrophe, whether or not the people under there are criminals, yes, that's true. But the question is it when you do the analysis, is it really worth it to take it to this level? And or maybe it wasn't planned properly, you know? And there's a lot of things going on, like the farms where you had Libyan guys. I'm not saying that that should be focused on, but it seems like the government has lost absolute control of that country, and their methods of trying to solve problems will end up with things like what happened in Lone Men. What do you think? Yeah.
yeah. No. So there are a lot of moving factors in terms of how the law needs to be applied,
Yeah.
and maybe in terms of strategy, the police maybe could have come up with an alternative strategy or something like that. But I think this is what they saw as the one way that they could force the people to come out, um, because by and large, what is happening at that shaft and underground are criminal activities.
Yep.
Then according to the law, then the criminals have to sort of hand themselves over to the police.
Okay,
But
so here's an example. Why don't they send policemen into Hillbrook and arrest all the drug dealers there? Do you see what I'm trying to say? But what I'm saying is that I'm
yeah,
not
sure,
judging
sure,
here.
sure.
I'm not judging. So here, the proof is in the pudding. Their procedures now led to an international disgrace and catastrophe. Here's my solution to
Yeah,
this issue. They should have had military, specially trained people to go down there. But that takes resources, tax money. So I'm not saying that the government is corrupt in this case, but this is a high level of incompetence. Also, it's a high level of lack of infrastructure. So South Africa does not have properly trained people to go down there and do this because this is not a job for police. This is a job for special operations. And a country that has that much wealth should have the ability to send people down there, like in the U.S. Marines and stuff like that, because what they're doing is to solve a criminal problem. They're putting massive lives at danger. Because not only that, those people down there may be holding people who want to come up and say, no, you're not going anywhere. You get my point? So it's just so, for example, like in Russia, when they have terrorist attacks, sometimes they say, okay, all the people have to die, all the innocent people have to die, but we're not going to let these people undermine our government, and we'll send troops in there, and we don't care if the hostages get killed. But what I'm saying is that the South African, not the South Africa, I don't want to make it seem like we're talking about South Africa, but the people that ran this operation, I'm not saying they're incompetent, but it's a sign of some sort of lack in the country within how economic and social economic and with the way things run. Because I think they know the proper procedure, but they don't have the infrastructure. And that boils down to, again, that South African resources are not being used properly. Because if this was in the US and this was a mining thing like this, they would bring in what they call the state militia, the National Guard. These are people who are just regular people, but they work for the military and the army, and they do these types of special operations. What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, no, actually, the unit that is there is a special unit that deals with mining incidences. Um, so they have. I think now that the issue has sort of reached this kind of like a crisis point, then they've deployed a few more police and emergency workers
Yeah, and see, that's
and
reactive.
things
It's
like.
not.
And this
It's
is
reactive.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is where more resources are being sort of activated. But the initial plan was being enforced by a particular unit in the police that deals
Yeah.
with this area of crime. And of course the idea of releasing military personnel on home soil is always kind of
Yeah,
like
but it's not like. But here's the thing: they're not here to do war. They're here to actually save people. So they're not going down there to arrest people. They're going there to save lives. And my thing is, if you don't use the military, it's okay. You can use police, but specially trained police. Same thing in the U.S. They have police who have military grade skills, but they're special
sure,
police.
sure,
But
sure.
my thing is that, but the proof is in the pudding because now this has become a catastrophe. And the only argument I'm having is that any analytical people who are properly trained, not me, I'm not trained for this, would have foreseen this type of catastrophe. So it's a mess up in planning. So moving forward, I'm not saying people need to lose their jobs, but there needs to be an inquiry because we remember what happened with the lone men crisis, which was a big failure in special ops for those guys to have gotten killed. And not only for them to have gotten killed, for them to have been able to defy the police and the powers that be for so long, so that it had to lead to that type of bloody climax, you know?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean the London crisis was a little bit different because those were um like workers.
Yeah, but
Those
it's
were
still the same dynamic in which the government has a problem that they can't contain. So what it ends up with is being
no,
something that people talk about for decades because they didn't handle the
yeah, yeah,
situation
yeah.
properly. Yeah.
No, for sure.
And it's still tied to the same issue,
For sure. I mean, I
mining
mean,
and money and
yeah, yeah.
poverty. Yeah.
But here, yeah, here are a few twists to that story. In that, in this particular instance, we are not even 100% sure whether it's like 1,000 people, 4,000 people that are down
Yeah,
there.
and this is what I was arguing about in my last show. Nobody knows. This is chaos. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, nobody knows the figures. Um, and we don't know, like, in terms of people who are coming out of there uh, having lost their lives, because I think the standoff has only been happening for over a month with the police. And I know earlier on in the month they did send food and water down there while they were negotiating with these guys to come out. So it was sort of like a hostage type situation,
Yeah. And
type of
this
thing.
is yeah.
Because
And
yeah,
but
I do think some of the guys who are down there would be wanting to come out and are willing to come out.
Yeah.
but they might be held at gunpoint to say, no, you're not
Yeah.
going anywhere.
And
Um,
this goes back to the condition of black people all over the world. If this had happened, I'm not speaking about just South Africa. The only country I think that could have handled this type of situation is maybe Egypt, maybe Nigeria, because Nigeria does have a powerful military. But if this had happened in Nigeria, everybody would have just been killed. What do you think, Afolabi? They would have sent
I agree
military
with
guys.
you. I
Everybody
agree
would have
with
been
you.
killed. Yeah,
I agree
but they
with
would have
you.
taken a. If this had happened in Nigeria, Nigeria has the force, but they would have used an authoritarian style. They would have just sent military guys down there. So
Oh,
I'm not
sure.
saying that's what should happen, but my point being is that if this had happened in the rest of the world, but we're talking about a continent which has the most resources, and in the era of 2024 and 25, we still appear to be incompetent. What do you think, Afalabi? Sorry. Yeah.
I agree with you. Of course, Nigeria would have sprung the military into action, probably even the Navy. In America, I believe the Navy SEALs would have even be employed on some kind of special
Yeah.
operations force. But the government is to blame. The government cannot
Yeah.
absolve itself from any of this. Fontaine has high unemployment. There's a lot of economic hardship compounded by abandoned and unrehabilitated mines. They have driven many of the people there to illegal mining. Now, the migrants are joining too. Retrenched workers turn to these activities as well as desperate measures. So, this underscores the systemic issues that you can only trace back to the government: poverty, crime, and unregulated mining. The government is
Yeah.
to blame. Now, if you look at the operation, the international media too is beginning to talk about it, that the government has failed to act. A lot of these mines have been abandoned, and what they're actually supposed to do, they're not doing. Now they have a crisis on hand, and they're not prepared to face the crisis, and they're giving
Yeah.
us for it. I think the government should take responsibility, and they should act fast.
Yeah. I think they need to be decisive no matter what, because if they're not careful, this will end up being a story that we'll talk about for decades. To me, there's more than 4,000 people. To me, there are whole cities under the ground in South Africa. And it's because of the tremendous wealth under the ground and the
They're
greed
not even
of.
sure of the statistics of the number of people
Yeah.
under there,
Yeah,
which
and
can be
here's
directed
another thing: it's
to the
an
government.
ecological disaster. These shafts, you go to the land, you strip the land of all its vegetation, you do everything. It leads to water problems, and now it leads to ghost towns, which are nightmares. Because even above the ground, people said that their houses were being destroyed near those grounds for people
From
destroying the bricks.
erosion.
Yeah, so they can take, and also people breaking down the houses, finding any type of tin or anything that's valuable. So it's become like a dystopia. What do you think, Larato? Yeah.
yeah. So, amen. So the longer this thing takes to resolve, the more complicated it becomes,
Yeah.
obviously. And from what I've been understanding, the government has sort of put all its resources to resolve this,
Yeah.
in as amicable a way as possible, in spite of utterances by the minister
Oh, the
in the
lady.
presidency.
Yeah.
Who said that they would smoke them out and all those things.
Yeah.
Of course, that is kind of like the hard line
I think that's how China and Russia would have dealt with it, to be honest with you.
that
I'm
that
not
the
taking her side.
police
I'm not going to
are
go
taking.
against her or go for her, but I'm saying
Yeah, yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
you just
I
have to
think.
be decisive. You have to be decisive, man. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is this hard line
Yeah. I'm not saying I'm
that
against the
I
hard
think
line, but
also
they
has
need
a lot
to
of
act
communal
quickly.
consensus
Yeah.
from.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, from communal consensus from other citizens as well, to say no, these people must just come out, and we need to, because I think last week when they were cutting off food and water supplies, it was to say that no, we're not going to give you any more supplies. You guys need to
Maybe they
come
should have
out.
just stuck with that, you know?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so I think that is where things are now, that no more
Yeah.
supplies
Falabi, is it ended? Yeah.
You know, no, it's not.
Okay. So what I'm saying is that I'm not going against liberalism, but these groups that, oh, people have a right to life and all that, their intentions may be good, but they're making the situation worse. What do you think, Lorato? Then we'll go to Falabi. Yeah.
No, definitely they're complicating the situation,
Yeah.
because like there's like two sides to the coin.
Yeah.
On the one hand, some citizens are saying the government should not be spending resources, like food and water and things like that, on
Yeah.
criminals. But as
Very
soon as
quickly, I
these
think the
guys,
government should do its best because it's still a territorial issue. It's a crime, so they still have to figure out how to solve it. But it has to be nuanced.
sure,
But yeah,
sure,
sorry,
sure,
go
sure,
ahead. Yeah,
sure. But as
yeah,
soon as these guys are arrested anyway, they will be subject to receive whatever it is that they receive under incarceration. That will also come from those same tax revenues. So
yeah.
it's kind of like a lose-lose situation when you look at it
But
like
yeah,
that.
but that's the whole point of socialism, or because South Africa is more socialistic than most capitalistic countries. The whole point is that you have to take everything. There has to be a safety net for the people. So resources have, if you can use resources to spend on, I'm just giving you an example, Bafana or Super Eagles, billions of dollars in soccer. You also have feed criminals once they're detained because the whole point about the punitive action is to deter future action and to reform people, and that takes money. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure,
But they
sure,
don't they
sure,
don't
sure.
want to tax foreign companies that are taking billions, but they want to complain about spending for taking care of criminals. That defeats the purpose because it's going to lead to more criminality because you're not spending on reforming criminals, giving
Yeah,
them
so
rights.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
I think that this then speaks to what we're speaking about, speaks to the danger of setting a precedent that whenever you want to deal with this kind of these kinds of operations, illegal mining operations, um, you will have a standoff between the police and the state, with people refusing to come out, knowing that
yeah. But
the
that
state.
that can't be avoided though because if you commit a crime and you try to escape it, it's going to lead to a standoff. It just needs to be that there needs to be a procedure that is followed.
Sure, sure,
Maybe
sure,
just
sure.
smoke them out or
Yeah, and
whatever. But and here's the thing: once South Africa has good procedures, because these guys will not spend more than a month in jail, except that they've committed real crimes like killing people and stuff like that. Yeah, I, I don't know what
yeah,
the criminal code
yeah.
is
Well,
in South Africa, but I know that I've seen people who were arrested for drug dealing stuff. They were out the same night, and it wasn't corruption. If this had been America, they'd be in jail for 20 years. I'm not saying that South Africa should do that. So it seems like the South African government is lenient. Look what they did. They are lenient on crime. So these guys have, I guess my point is, these guys have nothing to fear. If this was America, they may end up dead. And then the police will say, but South Africa tends to respect the rights of criminals more than other countries. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
yeah. I think it goes back to this idea of the right to life,
Yeah.
um, that people have once they are on this land. That you don't mess too much with a person's right to life.
Yeah, but right to life
Um,
means you have a right to life. It doesn't mean that the government will provide you life.
no, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. It's just that when the government then has to enforce the law using lethal means. Uh,
But here's the thing. But here's the thing. For example, let's say someone has tried to kill another person. The government has to shoot that person, or even somebody stealing and they're robbing. You have a right
yeah,
in most
yeah, no, for
constitutions.
sure.
Yeah, yeah.
They do have
And also the right to life has
have
to
a
be
right
flexible enough
to
that the government
self-defense.
sometimes has to take life in order to maintain the law. But it should be strict standards for it. You know.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think those standards are there and they are well understood.
Yeah.
Which is why we are where we are at with this
Yeah.
sort of situation, because um, there is a threat in terms of how armed these guys are, but that threat has not come out in the open. In in that
Yeah. This is a seriously
no
serious
one,
incident.
yeah,
Yeah.
no one has been witnessed to have been shot at or anything like that. But once you witness someone with a gun, obviously that person must be apprehended or they must be shot
Yeah.
in order
We'll see how it
to
ends. There's going to be
hold them.
some negotiations because I'm sure that there are powers that be that want some of those guys out of there too. So they'll negotiate with the government. But we never know. This might end up being a big tragedy. I don't know. Any
Yeah, yeah,
last minute?
yeah. So
Yeah. Go ahead.
I think,
We have to wrap up soon, but you can give us about a minute more. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. So I think the scariest thing is that the tragic thing might be that already a lot of the people who are trapped down there have already died,
yeah.
um, which would be the tragic thing. But of course, the people who would be responsible for the deaths of those people are the people who are responsible for these mining operations.
Oh, not
And
the
I
fear.
think this is sort of like the bedrock of why they are not in a hurry to come out, because they have then all these other manslaughter or
Yeah.
culpable homicide cases to answer
Hmm.
outside of um, the illegal mining crimes that
They'll
like
die under there
organized
because
crimes that they have
they're going
to
to run
answer
out of
to.
food. They'll die.
Yeah,
They're going to have
yeah,
to come out
yeah.
at some
So
point.
so yeah,
Hmm. And yeah, I
yeah.
don't think the
But
government is
I
wrong
think,
for blocking it up because no, the only problem is that it's going to a lot of innocent people will die too. Like I said, I think the
yeah,
best.
sure,
I'm
sure,
not
sure.
blaming
But
the
I
South
think
African government, but I think the best action would have been immediately this happens, and this is what countries like Russia and China do. You just do a cost sum. You do a cost benefit analysis. It's very dangerous to let criminals take the country at hostage. So it's better to go down there with guns and stuff and have maybe 500 people die than to have this long standoff and everybody dies because it sets a precedent. So my thing is that the only thing I'm blaming the government for is not blaming them, but learn from this. Because after this is over, there are still thousands of more shafts all over South Africa. So after this tragedy ends, they have to learn from this. I'm not going to
yeah,
take the
no,
stand.
no.
We don't
I
need to.
think,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I think the government now has to be a lot more proactive
yeah,
in terms of understanding um, the like the entire value chain of illegal mining or
yeah.
like irregular mining,
Yeah.
uh, because we have to ask the question where, and I heard Afolabi ask the question in the last show, who is buying
Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
these raw materials that are being sucked out of the ground?
It's
Where
probably
do
a
they go?
corporation.
Where are they being refined? So
Hmm.
you need to sort of follow the money
But you know what's even more
in
scary? What
reverse.
if guys like Ramaphosa know where it's going? Do you see my point? This is a deeper problem.
But yeah, this is what I'm saying as well,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
if we follow the money trail, and we follow the resources, and we understand what the causes of this issue are, outside of just like desperate unemployed young people who are being coerced by these cartels to go underground to do the work. um, you know the organized aspect of this criminal activity is what needs to
yeah.
be
But
to
my
be
argument
sort
is
of
that
dealt
it's
with
actually a
strategically.
grassroots thing. So my argument is that as long as there's severe poverty, there will always be organized crime. For example, as long as there's depression in America and abuse, the cartels will always be in business. If there's not depression and abuse, the cartels will disappear. So my thing is that we have
Sure.
to look at it not at the top. We have to solve the economic crisis because if everybody in South Africa is making 20,000 a month, yeah. Okay, so I feel like he's back. So yeah, so quickly tell us about the extortion thing, then we'll head out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I'm saying the new development that came out today is that there's extortionists who are demanding a cut from the rescuers at the mine. This was, I think, reported today.
Civilian
And
rescuers, right?
the
Yeah.
police are saying they are aware that there's someone who demanded 30% from one of the contractors that are working there to clear the site.
So in other
Um,
words, they're saying if you want to clear, we need money. So yeah, whatever. That's
yeah,
just
yeah,
old
yeah.
fashioned. It's part
Yeah,
of like.
but
Yeah.
this is another trend that maybe we might have to have a conversation on.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about it in the next episode because we're going to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
that. Well, maybe
In
even tomorrow.
terms of
So yeah, so let's cut here.
how,
But sorry, go ahead. Yeah, finish your last thoughts about how you were saying
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
how.
Now, I was saying in terms of how people who get government contracts before they begin their work, or once they're done
Yeah, yeah.
the work, they are
This is the type of
extortionists.
corruption that happens all over the world. Yeah.
For sure, for sure.
All right, so we're gonna go. This is a good show, but we're gonna have to continue. This sounds terrible, almost to the point that as long as it continues, we have content. That's a terrible thing to say, but anyway, that's the dark side of me. That I'll say that's. Let me say that's Carl Jung. Carl Jung was that's just my shadow talking. Sorry, guys. Okay, I follow you.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts on this? Yeah, yeah,
So basically, I feel the government has failed. First and foremost,
yeah,
I think the illegal mining business should be formalized. It's just like these people that vandalize pipelines in Nigeria and they have
yeah. They
illegal
actually meet with the government. Yeah, yeah,
local refineries. So there's a way South African government can formalize the illegal miners. The root cause of this is unemployment, hardship, and poverty. It's obvious to everybody. Now you can see people that are rescuing, bullying the government, saying that they need a certain amount of money before they can clear the site. That's unacceptable. So I think government
yeah.
should take responsibility, formalize the legal mining business, and then find jobs for some of these
Yeah,
illegal
that's
mining.
a good solution. So in the next session, we'll talk about formalizing because you need to have formalized this so that people who are in areas that are not being represented by the overall legal mining do have some source of funding. To me, that
Income.
sounds like a good. I also heard that on the news earlier today that some people are coming up with that idea. I wish we could continue, but we have to close out. So I feel like we take us out. Thank you. Very good
Okay,
show,
it's been
guys.
another
We'll be
wonderful
back
show.
tomorrow for sure, though. Yeah.
We
Okay.
don't want any more casualties in the
Yeah.
mining incident. And from me, Lerato and Mustafa is bye for now.
All right. So yeah, see you guys. Yeah. So send it so I can post it tonight. Then we'll be back tomorrow, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.